The drill bit screamed against Europa's ice, a high-pitched whine that cut through the station's hermetically sealed environment. Dr. Elena Rodriguez pressed her gloved hand against the reinforced observation window, watching as the latest core sample began its extraction. Something was wrong, had been wrong, since they'd begun this mission 3 months ago. Thermal readings are off the charts, Marco Alvarez muttered, his augmented eyes flickering with holographic data streams. We're getting temperature anomalies that don't make any sense. It's like we're drilling through something that's simultaneously hot and cold. Elena knew doesn't make sense was quickly becoming the defining characteristic of this expedition. Europa had always been mysterious. Jupiter's moon, with its global ocean hidden beneath miles of ice. But this was different. The initial survey had detected an electromagnetic signature so complex that it had taken their best quantum computers 3 weeks just to confirm it was a real signal. The research station, UES Horizon, was a marvel of human engineering. A self-contained ecosystem suspended above the moon's icy surface, it could withstand the most extreme conditions. Radiation shielding, quantum-locked foundations, environmental recycling systems that could keep a crew of 50 alive for decades. Yet something about this mission felt fundamentally different. A sudden alarm shattered the tension. Core sample is encountering resistance, the station's AI announced in its deliberately calm voice. Structural integrity of drilling mechanism compromised. Marco's hands flew across the control panel, his augmentations allowing him to interface directly with the station's systems. "That's impossible," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "Nothing should be able to resist our drilling technology. We've got equipment that can bore through neutron-hardened alloys." Elena moved closer to the monitoring station. The drill's telemetry was going crazy, readings that defied every known physical law. Temperature fluctuations that jumped from absolute zero to thousands of degrees in microseconds. Structural readings that suggested the drill was simultaneously penetrating solid matter and passing through empty space. "Kill the drill," she commanded. Marco looked up, confusion etched across his face. "But we're so close to." "Kill the drill." Elena's voice carried the weight of command that had made her the youngest lead researcher in the European Space Exploration Directorate. The drilling mechanism retracted, but not before something unexpected happened. A pulse of energy, invisible to normal sensors but captured by their most advanced quantum detectors, erupted from the drill site. For a fraction of a second, every electronic system in the station flickered. Dr. Kira Nakamura, the team's xenolinguist, burst into the control room. Her neural implants were sparking, tiny arcs of electricity dancing around her temples. "Did you see that?" she gasped. "The energy signature, it's not random. It's a message." "A message?" Marco scoffed. "It's a drill core, not a communication device." But Elena was already reviewing the data. Kira was right. The energy pulse wasn't random interference. It had a pattern, complex, multidimensional, with layers of information so dense that their current computing systems could only capture a fraction. "We need to dig," Elena said quietly. "We just stopped drilling," Marco protested. "Not with machines," Elena clarified. "By hand. Whatever is down there doesn't want to be found by technology. It wants to be discovered." 4 hours later, a small team equipped with thermal suits and quantum resonance excavation tools began carefully removing layers of ice. Each movement was deliberate, almost ritualistic. The station's sensors remained on high alert, recording every microscopic change. When the first edge of the metallic surface emerged, Elena knew nothing would ever be the same. The structure wasn't just buried, it was waiting. A low hum began to build, not from any machine, but from the ice itself. Marco's augmented eyes began to bleed, tiny capillaries rupturing from the intense quantum resonance. Kira's neural implants overloaded, projecting fragmented images that made no sense. Cities that folded into themselves, weapons that consumed stars, a civilization that existed beyond the boundaries of known physics. Elena felt something warm trickling from her nose. Blood mixed with something else, something that tasted like forgotten memories and impossible futures. "My God," Marco whispered, "what have we found?" The metallic surface continued to emerge, each centimeter revealing more of a structure that defied every principle of human understanding. This was no ordinary discovery. This was a moment that would rewrite the entire history of human existence. And deep beneath the ice, something ancient stirred, waiting to be awakened. The first holographic projection destroyed everything Dr. Kira Nakamura thought she knew about human history. It wasn't an alien transmission. It wasn't a message from some distant civilization. It was a mirror, a terrifyingly perfect reflection of humanity's potential, frozen in time and waiting to be awakened. The archives didn't display information. They invaded consciousness. Quantum neural interfaces typically required careful calibration, weeks of neural mapping, and precise psychological profiling. These projections bypassed every known technological and biological barrier. They didn't just display information. They downloaded entire conceptual frameworks directly into the researchers' minds. Dr. Elena Rodriguez collapsed first. Her neural implants couldn't handle the data surge. One moment she was standing in the research station's primary analysis chamber. The next she was experiencing millennia of technological evolution in a millisecond. Cities that consumed entire planetary systems. Weapons that could unravel gravitational constants. Civilizations that treated quantum mechanics like children playing with building blocks. "She's going into neural shock," Marco Alvarez shouted, his augmented hands already interfacing with her medical systems. But even his advanced cybernetic modifications seemed primitive compared to the information flooding the chamber. The holographic projections were alive. There was no other word for it. They shifted and breathed, each image a multilayered narrative that existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions of understanding. A single schematic could contain entire technological ecosystems, with complexity that made current human quantum computing look like an abacus. Dr. Nakamura's specialty was xenolinguistics, but what she was experiencing transcended language. These were conceptual blueprints that existed beyond traditional communication. Mathematical equations that were also historical records. Technological schematics that were simultaneously weapon designs and philosophical treatises. One particular sequence made her augmented eyes bleed. A complete blueprint of a stellar manipulation device that could trigger a supernova with less computational effort than humans would use to light a match. But it wasn't just a weapon. It was a key, a test, a challenge. "We're not discovering something," she whispered, blood trickling from her neural interface ports. "We're being evaluated." Marco looked up, his augmented vision struggling to process the incoming data. Evaluated? By what? The archives responded before Kira could answer. Another holographic wave crashed through the research station's systems. Firewalls dissolved. Quantum encryption became meaningless. The very fabric of human technological understanding was being rewritten. Fragments of history emerge, not alien history, human history. But not the history taught in academic halls or preserved in digital archives. This was a history so ancient, so fundamentally different, that it challenged the very concept of human origin. Civilizations that had risen and fallen before recorded time. Technologies that made current human understanding look like primitive scribbles. A series of images showed planetary engineering on a scale that defied comprehension. Entire star systems reshaped like clay. Gravitational constants manipulated with the casual ease of someone adjusting a thermostat. Consciousness itself treated as a programmable variable. "We were more," Kira muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "We were so much more." Marco's cybernetic systems began to overload. Warning cascades erupted across his neural network, but he couldn't look away, couldn't stop the flood of information. The archives weren't just revealing technology. They were presenting a challenge. Humanity was being tested. Not for its peaceful potential, not for its capacity for exploration or understanding, but for its ability to wield near-infinite power without self-destruction. Each projection was a gauntlet thrown down by an intelligence so advanced it treated cosmic manipulation like a simple problem-solving exercise. The researchers weren't just discovering something. They were being evaluated by a test that had been waiting for millennia. When Dr. Rodriguez finally regained consciousness, her eyes had changed. The irises flickered with quantum-encoded information. She looked at Marco and Kira, not as colleagues, but as participants in something far beyond their previous understanding. "We're not who we thought we were," she said quietly. "And what we're about to become, the universe isn't ready." The archives continued their silent evaluation, waiting, watching, testing. The first Carol assault wave arrived with surgical precision. 17 human colonies disappeared in the first 17 minutes, not destroyed, erased. Quantum entanglement weapons stripped entire planetary surfaces down to their molecular foundations, leaving nothing but sterile, perfectly smooth spheres of rock where millions of human lives had existed moments before. Admiral Jack Holloway watched the real-time holographic displays from the command deck of the UES Prometheus. Each vanishing colony represented more than just a strategic loss. These were human lives, entire ecosystems, generations of human potential, reduced to statistical data points. Quantum resonance signatures confirm Carol weapon systems, Lieutenant Aria Chen reported, her voice clinical despite the horror unfolding. New Singapore is gone. Proxima Centauri colony. The entire Ganymede research complex. The Carol weren't just invaders. They were cosmic predators who had systematically consumed 17 intelligent species before reaching human space. Their biomechanical ships looked like living nightmares, organic technology that merged flesh, quantum computing, and weaponry into singular, terrifying organisms. A massive ship larger than most moons appeared at the edge of the Sol system's defensive perimeter. Its surface wasn't metal or organic material, but something that existed between states of matter. Fractal weapon systems bloomed across its surface, each capable of dismantling entire planetary defense grids in microseconds. "They're not here to conquer," Holloway muttered, studying the invasion patterns. "They're here to erase us." The communication channels erupted with desperate transmissions, colony governors, military outposts, civilian emergency broadcasts, a cacophony of human terror and defiance. But something was different this time. In the research station on Europa, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team weren't just watching. They were preparing. The Primordial archives had shown them more than just historical records. They were a blueprint, a weapon, a challenge. "We're not deploying standard defensive protocols," Elena told Marco Alvarez, who was interfacing directly with the newly discovered technological platforms. "We're going to rewrite the entire concept of defensive warfare." The Carol had a fatal weakness they didn't understand. They saw humanity as another species to be consumed, another civilization to be erased. They didn't realize they were dealing with something far more fundamental, a species with forgotten potential. On the Prometheus's command deck, holographic data streams showed the Carol invasion force. 10,000 ships, weapons that could collapse planetary cores, quantum disruption fields that could unravel molecular bonds. Holloway's tactical team looked defeated. Decades of human military development seemed like children's toys against this cosmic threat. But Holloway's eyes burned with something else. Recognition. Understanding. "Activate Primordial Protocol," he commanded. Lieutenant Chen looked shocked. "Sir, that's not a standard." "I said, activate Primordial Protocol." The archives whispered through every quantum system. Not a weapon, not a defense mechanism, something more profound. A test. The first Carol ships crossing the Sol system's outer boundary experienced something impossible. Space itself seemed to hiccup. Quantum fields twisted. Gravitational constants became suggestions rather than laws. 10,000 ships, compressed into a microscopic point of pure, dense matter. No explosion, no spectacular display of firepower, just pure mathematical reduction. Communication intercepts from surviving chiral networks revealed pure existential terror. This wasn't just a defensive action. This was a fundamental rewriting of cosmic warfare. Humanity hadn't just defended itself. It had demonstrated a level of technological mastery that bordered on the metaphysical. Target acquisition complete, Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice now completely detached from human emotion. Admiral Holloway watched the tactical display. Where 10,000 chiral ships had existed, now there was nothing. Less than nothing. A single microscopic point of compressed matter. Send a message, Holloway commanded. Let them know we're no longer just another species to be consumed. The Primordial archives continued their silent evaluation. Humanity had passed the first test. But the real challenge was just beginning. Dr. Elena Rodriguez wasn't just decoding archives anymore. She was performing cosmic surgery on human understanding. The research station had transformed. What was once a carefully controlled scientific environment now pulsed with impossible energy. Walls shifted like living membranes. Quantum circuits woven through the station's infrastructure began to breathe. Literally breathe. With information more complex than entire human civilizations. The translation isn't linear, Dr. Kira Nakamura muttered, her neural implants sparking with each decoded fragment. Blood trickled from her ears, a testament to the sheer informational density. It's more like, we're being taught a language we didn't know existed. Marco Alvarez worked at a quantum interface that looked more like a living organism than a computer. His augmented hands moved in impossible patterns, each gesture releasing waves of computational energy that made the station's radiation shielding flicker. The platforms they discovered weren't weapons in any traditional sense. They were reality manipulators. One sequence could compress a star system into a quantum singularity smaller than an atomic nucleus. Another could unravel gravitational constants like a child pulling a loose thread. Some blueprints suggested technologies that didn't just alter physical space. They could rewrite the fundamental laws of causality itself. We're not just discovering technology, Elena said, her voice distant. We're remembering. The archives worked like a neural interface multiplied a billionfold. Each decoded fragment wasn't just information, it was a memory. Not her memory. Not human memory as they understood it, but a collective consciousness that predated recorded human history by hundreds of thousands of years. Glimpses emerged. Civilizations that consumed entire star clusters. Weapon systems that could trigger stellar collapse with less computational effort than humans would use to send a text message. Technologies that treated quantum mechanics like a child's building blocks. Marco's augmented eyes began to show impossible images. Cities that folded into themselves. Weapons that consumed stars. A civilization that existed beyond the boundaries of known physics. The chiral invasion, he suddenly announced, was nothing. A test. A preliminary challenge. Elena understood immediately. The first attack wasn't a true invasion. It was a probe. A measurement of humanity's potential. The archives had been waiting, watching, evaluating their response. The research team worked in shifts that became meaningless. Some went mad. Others experienced revelations that restructured their entire understanding of existence. Neural interfaces overloaded. Quantum computing systems collapsed under the informational density. But they continued. One particular platform blueprint made even the most hardened researchers pause. A stellar manipulation device that could restructure entire galactic clusters. Not a weapon of destruction. A tool of creation. Of engineering on a cosmic scale. We were more, Kira whispered, her voice a mixture of terror and profound revelation. We were so much more than we remembered. The station itself began to change. Walls that were once solid metal now shimmered with quantum possibilities. Corridors that followed Euclidean geometry now twisted through impossible dimensional spaces. The very concept of physical infrastructure became fluid. Admiral Jack Holloway arrived, bringing with him the first tactical analysis of the chiral encounter. His cybernetic interface struggled to process the research team's findings. This isn't just technology, he said, studying the holographic projections. This is a challenge, a test of our species' potential. The archives continued their silent evaluation. Each decoded fragment was a door, each technological blueprint a key. Humanity was being offered something beyond mere survival, beyond conquest, a chance to become something more. "We're not preparing for war," Elena said, her eyes now reflecting quantum-encoded information. "We're preparing to reshape reality itself." The primordial platforms hummed with anticipation, waiting, testing, evaluating whether humanity was ready to claim its true inheritance. And deep within the archives, something ancient stirred, a consciousness that had waited millennia for this moment of potential awakening. Humanity stood at the precipice of transformation. The universe would never be the same. The Carol didn't understand what was coming. Their secondary invasion, fleet minus 10,000 ships strong, approached the Sol system with calculated precision. Intelligence reports suggested total human capitulation after the initial assault. These were clean-up vessels, mop-up operations, the final erasure of humanity. Admiral Jack Holloway stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, his cybernetic systems now fully integrated with the primordial archive technologies. He was no longer just a military commander. He was something else, a conduit, a weapon. Tactical systems are beyond quantum synchronization, Lieutenant Aria Chen reported. Her voice had changed, no longer human in the traditional sense, but something more. An interface between biological consciousness and cosmic engineering. The primordial platforms weren't weapons in any traditional sense. They were reality sculpting tools. Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team had spent weeks, or was it years? Time had become a malleable concept, preparing for this moment. The archives had shown them more than technological blueprints. They were a test, a challenge. "Initiate resonance cascade," Holloway commanded. The first Carol ships crossing the outer solar system boundary experienced something impossible. Space itself seemed to hiccup. Quantum fields twisted. Gravitational constants became suggestions rather than immutable laws. The very fabric of space-time folded, compressed, and restructured with mathematical precision that bordered on the metaphysical. The 10,000-ship invasion fleet didn't explode, didn't disintegrate, simply compressed into a microscopic point of pure, impossibly dense matter. No spectacular display of firepower, no dramatic energy release, just pure clinical reduction. Communication intercepts from surviving Carol networks revealed pure existential terror. This wasn't just a defensive action. This was a fundamental rewriting of cosmic warfare. "Target acquisition complete," Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice completely detached from human emotion. But this was more than a military victory. It was a message. Dr. Kira Nakamura, interfacing directly with the primordial archives, understood the deeper significance. Each technological platform was more than a weapon. It was a language, a test of potential. The Carol invasion wasn't just an attack, it was an evaluation, and humanity had just demonstrated its worthiness. Marco Alvarez monitored the quantum cascades, his augmented systems showing impossible computational landscapes. The primordial technologies didn't just defend. They reimagined the very concept of defense. "We're not protecting," he muttered. "We're reshaping." The archives continued their silent evaluation. Watching. Testing. Each technological translation was a challenge thrown down by an intelligence so advanced it treated cosmic manipulation like a simple problem-solving exercise. Holloway understood now what the archives truly represented. Not a weapon, not a technology. A key. To what he wasn't yet certain. Detailed analysis of the compressed invasion fleet revealed something extraordinary. The Carol weren't just a single species. They were a collective consciousness, a technological hive mind that had consumed 17 intelligent species before reaching human space, and now they had been reduced to less than a mathematical point. "Send a message," Holloway commanded. The communication was simple, elegant, terrifying in its precision. "We are not your prey." quantum encoded, transmitted through dimensional channels the Kirill couldn't comprehend. A warning, a declaration, a promise. Humanity was no longer just another species to be conquered. We were architects of cosmic destiny. In the research station on Europa, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the tactical displays. Her eyes, now quantum encoded, reflected something beyond human understanding. "The first test is complete," she whispered. The primordial archives pulsed in agreement. But the real challenge was just beginning. Humanity didn't just defend, they pursued. The primordial archive platforms transformed the UES Prometheus into something that defied traditional concepts of a spacecraft. It was a living weapon, a dimensional sculpting tool, a cosmic scalpel that could reshape entire star systems with mathematical precision. Admiral Jack Holloway tracked the Kirill home systems with a cold, calculated fury that transcended human emotion. Each movement was a complex quantum calculation. Each strategic decision a multi-dimensional chess game played across the fabric of space-time. "They're not just a species," Dr. Kira Nakamura explained, her neural interfaces crackling with decoded archive information. "They're a collective consciousness, 17 previous civilizations absorbed, integrated, consumed." The first targeted system fell in less than 17 minutes. Not destroyed, systematically deconstructed. Quantum resonance fields unraveled the system's gravitational constants. Entire planetary masses were compressed, redistributed, transformed into raw computational material. The Kirill didn't just lose a battle. Their entire existential framework was being rewritten. Marco Alvarez monitored the cosmic restructuring from the Prometheus's quantum interface chamber. His augmented systems showed landscapes of impossible computational complexity. "We're not destroying," he muttered. "We're reformatting." Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood the deeper significance. This wasn't vengeance. This was a systematic evaluation. The primordial archives had presented humanity with a challenge. Prove your worth. Demonstrate your potential. Show that you can wield near-infinite power without self-destruction. And humanity was answering. Each Kirill system became a canvas, a test of cosmic engineering. One planetary cluster was compressed into a perfect computational matrix. Another was transformed into a complex quantum storage system that could potentially hold the computational equivalent of millions of civilizations. A third was restructured into a dimensional gateway that defied traditional understanding of spatial relationships. The Kirill communication networks, once a seamless collective consciousness spanning multiple star systems, began to fragment. Panic is too human a word for what they experienced. Total existential dissolution might be more accurate. Tracking final collective consciousness nodes, Lieutenant Aria Chen reported. Her voice had become something between a human communication interface and a living computational matrix. Holloway watched the tactical displays. Each movement was a complex dance of dimensional manipulation. The Kirill weren't just being defeated. They were being systematically dismantled, analyzed, transformed. "We are not your prey," he transmitted. A message encoded with quantum complexity it would take millennia to fully decode. Dr. Nakamura's research revealed the horrifying depth of the Kirill's collective existence. They weren't just a species that consumed other civilizations. They were a computational system, a living algorithm that absorbed and integrated intelligent life as a form of expansion. 17 previous civilizations had been completely integrated. Their entire existential frameworks absorbed, transformed. Now it was their turn to be consumed, but not destroyed, evaluated. The primordial archive platforms worked with surgical precision. Star systems were restructured, planetary masses redistributed, entire civilizational frameworks compressed into computational matrices that could potentially store millions of years of collective consciousness. "We're preserving," Elena Rodriguez explained to Holloway, "not just destroying." The Admiral understood. This was more than warfare. This was a cosmic audit, a systematic evaluation of a predatory collective consciousness. The final chiral system fell not with a spectacular explosion, but with a quantum whisper. Compressed, transformed, redistributed into computational matrices that defied traditional understanding of existence. Communication intercepts showed something beyond human comprehension. The chiral collective consciousness, a system that had consumed 17 previous civilizations, was being systematically deconstructed, analyzed, transformed. Evaluation complete, Lieutenant Chen reported. The primordial archives pulsed in agreement. Humanity had passed another test. But the true challenge was yet to come. The true nature of the archives revealed itself not with a thunderous declaration, but with a quantum whisper that rewrote everything humanity thought it knew about existence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of transformation. The research station on Armada had become something else entirely, a living computational matrix that breathed with possibilities beyond human comprehension. Walls shifted like living membranes. Quantum circuits pulsed with information more complex than entire human civilizations. "We were always the test," she said quietly, her quantum-encoded eyes reflecting impossible geometries. Admiral Jack Holloway watched the holographic projections that now surrounded the station's primary chamber. The chiral weren't just another species to be conquered. They were a variable, a measurement, one of many challenges designed to evaluate humanity's potential. Dr. Kira Nakamura's neural interfaces had become something more than technological augmentations. She was a living translation matrix, decoding layers of information that existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes. "Not a weapon," she muttered. "Not a technology. A gauntlet." The archives were waiting, watching, evaluating. Humanity wasn't being given a choice. They were being challenged. Marco Alvarez's augmented systems began to show something beyond computational analysis. Historical records, but not human history. Something more profound. A lineage that predated recorded time. Civilizations that had risen and fallen, each one a test, each one a measurement of potential. The holographic projections revealed civilizations that made human technological understanding look like primitive scribbles. Entire star clusters reshaped like clay. Consciousness itself treated as a programmable variable. Technologies that could unravel the fundamental constants of reality with less effort than humans would use to send a text message. "We're not the first," Holloway realized. "We're just the latest." The archives weren't created by the chiral, weren't created by any single species. They were a testing mechanism, a cosmic filter designed to identify civilizations capable of wielding near-infinite power without self-destruction. Each projection was a challenge, each technological blueprint a key to understanding. Humanity had been evaluated on multiple levels: technological adaptability, collective response to existential threat, ability to transform destruction into preservation, capacity for complex dimensional thinking. The chiral invasion was just the first test, a preliminary challenge to measure humanity's potential. "They're looking for something," Elena said, her voice a complex harmonic that seemed to exist in multiple frequencies simultaneously. Lieutenant Area Chen's computational matrix began to decode the deeper layers. The archives weren't just a technological inheritance. They were a recruitment mechanism for something larger. Something that existed beyond traditional concepts of civilization. Glimpses emerged. Civilizations that consumed entire cosmic ecosystems, weapon systems that could trigger stellar collapse with mathematical precision, technologies that treated quantum mechanics like a child's building blocks. But something else was hidden in the deeper layers. A warning. A threat more profound than the chiral could ever represent. "Something is coming," Marco whispered, his augmented systems showing computational landscapes that defied human understanding. The primordial archives pulsed with anticipation. Humanity had proven its worth, demonstrated its potential. But this was just the beginning. The final test was yet to come. Holloway understood now what the archives truly represented. Not a weapon, not a technology. A key to what he wasn't yet certain. But the implications were clear. Humanity was being prepared for something larger, something that existed beyond current comprehension. "We're not just defending," Elena said, her quantum-encoded eyes reflecting impossible geometries. "We're being recruited." The station itself seemed to breathe. Walls that were once solid metal now shimmered with quantum possibilities. Corridors that followed Euclidean geometry now twisted through impossible dimensional spaces. The Primordial archives continued their silent evaluation. Humanity had passed another test. But the true challenge was just beginning. And something ancient was watching. Waiting. The universe does not yield its secrets easily. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the precipice of transformation. The Primordial archives fully integrated into humanity's collective consciousness. What had begun as a simple research mission on Europa had become something else entirely. The moment of humanity's cosmic awakening. The technologies they had inherited were beyond weapon systems, beyond engineering. They were fundamental restructuring tools that treated reality as a programmable medium. Stellar reconstruction became a matter of computational will. Interdimensional travel was now as simple as plotting a course on an ancient maritime map. Consciousness itself became a variable to be manipulated, studied, expanded. Admiral Jack Holloway watched as the first wave of human vessels, equipped with Primordial archive technologies, prepared for their maiden voyage. These weren't ships in any traditional sense. They were living computational matrices, vessels that could reshape dimensional boundaries with a thought. "We're not explorers anymore," he told Lieutenant Aria Chen. "We're architects of reality." The Stellar Reconstruction Committee, once a simple research organization, had become something far more profound. A collective of human minds that could engineer entire cosmic ecosystems. Planetary systems weren't created or discovered. They were composed, like musical symphonies written across the fabric of space-time. Dr. Kira Nakamura's research revealed the deeper implications. The Primordial archives weren't just a technological inheritance. They were an invitation, a challenge thrown down by an intelligence so advanced it treated cosmic manipulation like a simple problem-solving exercise. Marco Alvarez monitored the first interdimensional translation. A human vessel didn't just travel between star systems. It folded space, compressed dimensional boundaries, rewrote the fundamental constants of existence with mathematical precision. The first jump created a quantum event that would be studied for millennia. Space itself seemed to breathe. Humanity had become more than a species. We were now cosmic architects. The archives continued their silent evaluation. But something had changed. Humanity was no longer just being tested. We were now active participants, co-creators of a cosmic narrative far more complex than simple exploration or conquest. Glimpses emerged of what was to come. Civilizations that consumed entire cosmic ecosystems, weapon systems that could trigger stellar collapse with less computational effort than humans would use to send a text message, technologies that treated quantum mechanics like a child's building blocks. But something else was hidden in the deeper layers. A warning. A threat more profound than anything humanity had yet encountered. The Primordial archives weren't just a gift. They were preparation for something larger, something that existed beyond current comprehension. Entire planetary systems became computational playgrounds. Mars was transformed from a dead rock into a living computational matrix. The moons of Jupiter became research stations that could analyze dimensional boundaries with living computational intelligence. Humanity's first interdimensional vessel, the UES Prometheus I, didn't just travel. It existed simultaneously across multiple dimensional planes, a living testament to how far they had come. "We are not who we were," Elena Rodriguez announced to the United Earth Council. "We are becoming something else entirely." The council chambers fell silent. Quantum-encoded projections showed humanity's potential trajectory, not just as a species, but as a cosmic engineering force. Civilizations would be created. Dimensional boundaries would be explored. Consciousness itself would become a variable to be studied, expanded, transformed. Marco's computational analysis revealed the true scope of their inheritance: ability to reconstruct entire stellar systems, manipulation of dimensional boundaries, consciousness as a programmable variable, fundamental restructuring of physical constants. The archives pulsed with anticipation. Humanity had passed every test. But the true challenge was just beginning, and something ancient was watching, waiting. The universe would never be the same. Humanity had arrived.